Hi guys, it is a fabulously dreary day and I'm out here doing as much as I can to secure things before the storm that comes in between rainstorms, but realized it's been probably about a month since I've done a garden tour, so let me show you around and see how much has changed because it's looking nothing like it once did. So from out here it's looking pretty lush and vibrant and really nice, extremely wet. A little bit of standing water everywhere. We've had a lot of rain and we have that tropical storm coming in here in a few days that's predicted to drop about 20 inches as of right now, so only gonna be more water. But anyway, we had just insane heat and drought conditions for a very long time. We got a brief period of rain in the middle there that perked things up a little bit, but then it went right back to heat advisories and the garden suffered. I mean, I did too. I didn't want to be out of it. The burnout is real. I pretty much just wiped my hands of things and said, I will water, I will do what I can, but I'm not going above and beyond because there's only so much you can do when Mother Nature doesn't contribute. But since then, obviously, we've gotten some rain. We've had a very wet couple weeks actually, and everything is starting to come back to life. So first off, the green bean arch, or the pole bean arch, this had pretty much stopped producing for a solid month. I think in one of my last updates I showed you how a lot of the blawhide pole beans were shriveling and empty, but they are finally perking back up, although I did lose a few plants. You can see it's looking mighty thin there. But that's just with the blawhide purple beans. The Kentucky Wonder green beans, she's thick. I can't even zoom out far enough to really give you a good idea. But despite the foliage never really being affected, I had gotten very little green beans between the Japanese beetles going after them and then the drought. But now we are back producing. I actually just picked my first good haul today for the first time in a good month. And prior to that, I was getting upwards of a pound of beans every day or two. So very, very, very happy to see that that is coming back to life. But as you can see, that's Kentucky Wonder, lush and beautiful. And then the blawhide pole beans, which produced very well in the beginning of the year and weren't bothered by the Japanese beetles, but they took a hard hit with the heat and drought. But they're coming back. I think we'll have a good bean season here moving forward. Now this is cucamelons that have climbed an old sunflower stalk. It's just one plant, and I only planted one plant because everyone said, oh, they are such prolific producers. You will have more than you know what to do with. Well, I've picked almost nothing off of this. But then it started raining. They're starting to produce again, and I'm not picking a whole lot quite yet. But there's a lot more on here than there were. And it's just, it's so dense. It's trying to find the ripe fruit in here is trying to find a piece of straw in a stack of hay. It's harder than a needle in a haystack. But that's nice to see that these are starting to produce again. The foliage was never disrupted by the drought. It's taking over everything. So if you plan on planting cucamelons, put them in a spot where you know they'll be able to be contained. And where they may potentially be okay to be permanently, because from everything people have told me, once you plant them, they will come back every year. So that should be fun. It's pretty though. So I do still have squash growing, but if you've been following along, you know this used to be dense. I mean thick with squash. I have lost a few plants to squash vine borers, to disease, to drought and heat issues. So it has thinned out quite a bit. Ugh, look at all that standing water already. We're supposed to get another 20 inches. Oof. The most obvious lack of squash is over here. This used to be all squash. This whole corner here had one giant Black Beauty zucchini that blocked the walkway entirely. So yeah, that got taken out by squash vine borers. Like I said, I was getting a little bit more hands off because it was hot. And garden burnout is a thing. Happens this time every year. You just kind of throw your hands up and say, may the odds be ever in your favor. Losses do happen. I have started succession sowing more for a fall season. Bud's looking a little thin over here. But that is okay. Because with the fall season comes fall planting. So I need the space to put my fall crops, my carrots, my brassicas, and potatoes, and all those things as well. So having open space isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I still have enough squash where I'm eating fresh squash. This is one around 2 that'll hopefully be producing here soon. It's actually got some buds starting already, which is a little bit early, but I planted a few that haven't come up yet. All my tomatoes are gone. Every single last one of them that was over here is done. And unfortunately, the only one that even survived long enough to remotely harvest from was the Tidy Treats cherry tomato, and that's gone too. Well, I shouldn't say I have no tomatoes. I have this thing. This was a cutting. I took off one of the diseased tomatoes before it had succumbed to the disease, and it was a large cutting. I just stuck it in the ground and said, whatever happens, happens. Well, it goes all the way up there. This is 8-ish feet and has not produced a single tomato. If I remember correctly, this was the Acres tomato. I'm hoping it'll produce soon, and it just stopped because of the heat. Tomatoes may still flower in the heat, but they won't actually set any fruit if it's above 85, 90 degrees. See, there's some flowers up there. They just drop their flowers, or the flowers are unable to get pollinated. So now that it's starting to cool down a little bit, these storms have brought in some cooler temperatures. Maybe we'll get a tomato off that. I also have this lychee tomato. I've never grown lychee tomatoes before. They're extremely thorny. Can you see that? I haven't gotten any fruit off of it. So it's been flowering this whole time. It produces these clusters of flowers. And then before every single one even gets a chance to open, the stem like rots and they just do that. So if you know anything about lychee tomatoes and could tell me what is going on, I would love to hear it, because I really want to try the fruit off this, if it ever gives me fruit. Let's see, what else has changed? Oh, some watermelons where the tomatoes used to be. Kind of a late season planting, but we have a long growing season here, so since they are smaller varieties, they shouldn't take as long to mature. So we'll see if we get anything off there. Peppers have been kind of a miss this year. Banana pepper is doing great. I mean, I'm loaded with banana peppers. I have a ton in the house already that I'm using this weekend, and plenty more to come. But otherwise, Bikino pepper looks decent, hasn't fruited. I think this was a Lacea pepper. I had a few pepper plants that did this. The leaves get all mottled, kind of just die off, and nothing really happens to them. Same thing with that one, what was that? Oh yeah, that was a sweet Italian peperoncini. It's finally putting on some growth that looks relatively normal, but the initial growth looked very diseased. We do have Carpacci peppers. I love that spiral. Oh, these are so good once they get off there. Once they get a little bit reddish orange is when they are my favorite. They get so fruity. But that's the first two peppers off of this one. And it's kind of late in the season to just now be fruiting for the first time. It's been a challenging nightshade year. But despite the absolutely obnoxious heat, I still have Brussels sprouts growing. This plant is almost a year old at this point. It has been in my garden for almost a year. I planted it last fall as a fall crop, and it just kind of stayed there and nothing much happened, and I just let it go and thought I'd be pulling it this spring, and it's trying to form Brussels sprouts. I mean, those are decent, but this is a cold weather crop. Why is this thriving with heat indexes of 104? I don't know, but I'm letting it do its thing. Now I'm invested. I should name it. What should I name this guy? I mean, after a year, it may as well be a pet. It really needs a name. So you got name ideas, I'm open to it. I started planting another round of bush beans. The original ones are pretty much toast, and it was going great. All of them sprouted, looking good, and then birds came through and decided to eat all my seedlings. So I tried again, and it happened again. I think I just sowed for my third time a couple days ago. They haven't started coming up yet, but fingers crossed the birds leave them alone long enough for them to not be so fragile. I want to talk about the squash tree real quick. It doesn't look as tall as it is because it folded over on itself in one of the windstorms. Thankfully did not break. But this was a bit of an experiment to see how it held up against the squash vine borers. I did not treat this one with anything that I treated the other plants with, the other squash plants. I wanted to see if growing vertically with no other intervention would be enough. It outgrew its stake really, really fast. Like, look at how winding the stem is, how much it winds around the stake and is bent. And even with all that, it made it to the top. I ran out of stake to stake it to, and then it folded over. This thing has been the healthiest plant. Had no real disease issues with it, and no squash vine borers, except in the leaves. So they've been chewing the leaves off. You know, a lot of times they'll start in the leaves and work their way down to the stem, but it doesn't seem like they ever go past the leaves. You can see him, he's right there. Yeah, there he is. Unlike many other places, we have 2 squash vine borer seasons here because it is so warm, so most people are outside of squash vine borer season, and we're in our second wave. So they're still laying. I mean, to clip that off later. But yeah, so outside of the leaves getting attacked by the vine borers, and it is pretty much every leaf, eventually. And then a little bit of an aphid issue. I have had no squash vine borer issues with this one. But I'm still not convinced because that one was also grown vertically. And so is that one. Squash vine borers took out both of them. This one I actually recently just cut off the main stem. You can see that's where it was attached. And stuck it in the ground since it's been so wet in hopes that it'll reroot at the top portion and keep growing. So why would these succumb to squash vine borers grown vertically, but not the tree over there? So I think it may be worth trying more in depth next year instead of just doing 4. I think I had 4 squash plants that I was growing vertically. Maybe do half and half. I grow 2 plants of each variety I plant. Maybe do one that's allowed to crawl on the ground and one that is grown vertically, and see what kind of results I get. Maybe the 2 that didn't survive by the fence, maybe it just didn't have enough airflow because it was by the fence. The theory behind growing vertically is it toughens up the stem, so the vine borers can't actually get through it. It's too tough for them. What toughens up the stem is exposure, airflow, and it supporting itself. So maybe it just didn't get enough airflow and didn't toughen it up enough to stop the vine borers. So something I'm thinking about for next year. Let me know what you think. Oh, and one thing I'm so excited for, I really, really hope they don't split in the storm or they ripen before the storm. My Ananas de Amérique melons, they are so close to ripe. I have a baggie over them to protect them in case they do ripen off and fall off the vine, because they do like to do that. And also to keep the pickle worms out because, yes, we have pickle worms and squash vine borers active at the moment. Here's a younger one. They're so good. And it'll be the first ones of the season, and I'm so excited because all my watermelons were a big flop this year. Well, I shouldn't say that all my watermelons are a big flop this year because they're kind of a big flop every year. I don't know why, but I am incapable of growing a full-size watermelon. And this year was particularly rough. So in years past, I'll grow a watermelon that's supposed to get up to 30 pounds, and it's 3 pounds when it's ready to harvest. But I would still get a watermelon. Sorry, AC just kicked on. It's still hot, even though it's not in the heat wave anymore. But anyway, I would still get watermelons. They would just never grow to their full potential size. Well, this year, they just didn't grow. I had one go from sun scald, one that actually like 3 that the vine died, so I had to harvest them and they just weren't ripe. And one of them I harvested because the vine died. It wasn't ripe, but it had seeds sprouting inside of it. How does... Only I can grow a watermelon, harvest it unripe, and have watermelon plants growing inside of it. I mean, how does that happen? I've tried everything. I've read all the different fertilizer schedules and water requirements and how to grow the best watermelon. I've watched all the videos. I've followed the advice from other people. I cannot grow watermelon to save my life. You know, others, they spit watermelon seeds out in the yard when they're eating watermelons one day, and next thing they know, they have an amazing watermelon patch. But it's getting comical at this point. If you have some sort of magic watermelon growing experience or skill, please share it. I need the help. Okay, so maybe I have 2 tomatoes growing, but I didn't plant this one. This is compost volunteer tomato. Same thing. Lots of flowers. It's been growing beautifully with no issue and no intervention from myself. But not a single tomato off of it. And it's been growing for a while. But tomatoes aren't not my thing this year, apparently. We'll see if something happens now that it's cooled down. Maybe. Alright, so on to the arch. This is the loofah arch. Loofah, ridge gourd, sweet potatoes. See, it's filled out quite nicely. All the blooms are kind of closed up because of the rain. But normally this thing is covered in flowers. You can kind of see where they would be. It's so pretty. It's a little bare over there. I don't know why, but the plants are doing fine. This is my favorite part. There's just look up. They're everywhere. Harvested quite a few off of this already and made some sponges. This will keep going until we get a frost. These are the ridge gourds. It's so nice and shady under here. In the heat, it was wonderful. It's a good thing I made such a tall arch because it's starting to hang over the sides a little. Sweet potatoes are sweet potatoing. The vines love to travel, but I'm letting them take over where the corn used to be because they will reroot all along the stem. You can kind of see those little nodules right there. Those are roots, and wherever it puts new roots down, it'll grow sweet potatoes. But I checked this the other day just to see how things were progressing a little bit, and there's sweet potatoes under there. Still got lots of time to go, but hoping we're gonna have another good season like last year. And a friend actually gave me some cuttings off of her sweet potato vine just like 2 weeks ago. Just on a whim because it was getting out of control, and they all rooted nicely, so I plopped them in the ground to see if we're going to get anything off of them. But these are a purple variety. These are Japanese purple variety, so I'm really excited to see what they produce, if they produce, because I've never grown anything other than just standard run-of-the-mill orange sweet potato that I actually started from sweet potatoes I bought at the store and just kept them going each year. But that'll be interesting. Okay, on to the front yard. I have started a bunch more tomatoes in hopes for possibly a fall harvest. Hopefully our season is long enough to get something off of them. They're a little smaller than I would like them to be, but seems my luck with tomatoes this year. Oh, would you look at this sunflower? This is a chocolate cherry. It's just one of the little side shoots, side heads. They had a big center one, and now it's just putting off these little side ones, but they're so pretty. Got a whole bunch of spent heads on it, and then a little one that's trying to open over here. Lovely Classic one here. Don't ask me the varieties because these have been cross-pollinated and seed saved and cross-pollinated and seed saved so many times. It's not super large. It's about 4.5 feet tall. Unfortunately, had spider mites take out almost all my dahlias. There's a few surviving ones, but they're a little beat up too. Oh, but something I am so excited about is round 2 of raspberries. Look at all those. There's so many in here. This is a Dorman red raspberry. It is a ever-bearing variety and does 2 good flushes per year. So those are just starting to ripen up. A lot more that haven't quite fully bloomed or developed yet. Lots of little blooms. They are so good. I can't wait. I think the last time I showed you my dwarf pomegranate may have been with fruit this size on it. Well, since then I've actually picked a fruit off of here, and it has set a few more. I haven't cut open into that one yet, so I don't know if it's ripe. Because pomegranates take months of really, really hot weather to ripen. Dwarf pomegranates, no matter where I look, it just tells me how long it takes for full-size pomegranates to ripen. Not your dwarf varieties. And it was showing all the signs of being ripe, going from, see how round that is, and it's kind of shiny. As they ripen, they start to get a little bit more angular. You see, this one's just starting to get those flat spots and angular. And the rind gets much softer. Like, I can't pierce that with my fingernail. When they're ready, you can. I'll show a picture of the one I just picked so you can see what I'm talking about. But they only get about the size of a large golf ball. So I'll have to cut open into that one and see if it's actually ripe. If you are familiar with dwarf pomegranates and can tell me how long it usually takes for them to ripen, I'd love to know, because the full-size ones take like 5 to 7 months. How pretty and wild is this? All the butterfly ginger lily is starting to bloom. If only you could smell this. And now my neighbor's AC kicked on. Sorry about that. Perils of living in the South. Now, all this looks pretty yellow because the neighbors actually had their house pressure washed, and the pressure washers over concentrated the cleaner and oversprayed and actually burnt a bunch of my plants. But trying not to be salty about it. Oh, is that one? Oh, it is, it is. This is a new variety that a neighbor gave me. This is gonna be like a salmon colored. Oh, I didn't think these would bloom this year. Oh, that's exciting. I'll have to keep an eye on those. Siam tulips are loving their transplanted location. They used to be jammed back in this corner and weren't getting enough sun. But they don't want too much sun. They like a little bit of shade, so figure they're shaded by the elephant ear a little bit, but still getting more sun, and they are doing fantastic, as well as the torch ginger. Just look at the size of this thing. I mean, it's massive and stunning. I'm so obsessed with these. Too bad they don't really have that much of a smell. But they're so pretty. A butterfly ginger lily certainly has a smell though. Oh my goodness, they're amazing. We're also getting around too on the Ann's Golden raspberries. They're a little bit more behind than the Dorman, but it seems like it was that way last year as well. But we've got a good flush going on. Oh, raspberries are my favorite fruit. I get so excited about this. It may seem minimal to some people, but I can live on raspberries. And that's not an exaggeration. I probably could. Now for something I am beyond excited about. Look at this. So my dragon fruit had 4 flowers on it not too long ago, and I missed it blooming. Oh, I was so salty. I didn't get out here in time. They had bloomed about a day before I expected them to, and I wasn't paying attention. So I wasn't able to hand pollinate them right after opening. But out of the 4 flowers, 2 of them were pollinated and are turning into fruit. This is the very, very first time my dragon fruit has ever produced. It started flowering at the end of last year. Nothing ever came of it, but I've never even tried dragon fruit. I got this as a cutting 2 years ago, just a single segment cutting, maybe 8 to 10 inches long. It grew up to this monstrosity, and it's fruiting for the first time. I've never even tried the fruit. I've never even bought the fruit at a store to try it, so I don't even know if I like it. That's one reason I'm so excited about it. It's wild. I can't believe I'm actually going to get fruit off of it. Timing is right. These should be ripe September 2nd on the holiday. So I'll keep you updated on that. I've actually got more buds too. From the time a bud forms, when it's just this tiny little pimply looking thing on the stalk, it's about 20 days until it turns into a flower. And then once that flower blooms and is pollinated, it's about 40 to 45 days for the fruit to mature. It is absolutely wild how fast this thing goes. I mean, it went from this tiny little cutting to this beast of a plant that I have cut more cuttings off of than I can even count at this point in 2 years. The giant flowers form in less than a month, and then 1 pound plus size fruit go from flower to ripe in 40 to 45 days. Dragon fruit is wild. But you see this? This one little segment right here? It's not even full length of my hand. That's the original cutting. This one little section. And in 2 years, I've cut her back a lot, and she's fallen and broken a few times. Insane. Oh, isn't that cute? Little lizard on a flower bud. Anyway, it's starting to rain. Yes, I know, I desperately need to weed out the base of that. I need to weed everything, but I have some storm prep to do. We're supposed to get like 20 inches of rain, like I said. I'll let you know how everything fares. I think we're getting that, they're saying Wednesday to Thursday. So in like 4 days, 3-4 days. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I will keep you updated as the storm passes, and hopefully everything goes well and we have no major surprises. Wherever you are, stay safe. If you're in the storm's path, I wish you all the best of luck. And I'll see you next time. Bye.